Welcome to Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willis, your host. We are going to have a great show for you. Good morning, Houston. Buenos dias, mis hermanos. Good morning, my brothers and sisters. How is everybody doing this morning? I trust all is good. I trust all is good. Good morning, El Senor. Tori Mercer. How is everybody doing? How is everybody doing? We are going to have a great show for you today. We are going to have a great show for you today. Anyhow, folks, what are your thoughts about what's happening in with the debt ceiling? And by the way, that's not our topic for today. It's just that last night the Senate officially, without any troubles, with 11 attempted amendments that failed, got the debt ceiling solved. It's something we said was going to happen anyway, right? That's what we said. We know they were playing with us. They were getting us all excited about things not working, but we always knew that something was going to work, and it totally did, But anyhow, folks, the telephone number is 713-526-5738. We have a fairly long interview that I want to sort of not preempt, but tell you a little bit about first. There's this police officer, became professor, and he had written a book about race and policing, etc. So I wanted to talk to him. I spoke to him, wrote an article about him on the Daily Kos. The people at the university saw it, and they weren't too happy with him, and they put him on notice, etc. Well, it turned out that they held on to him, but things happened again, and he called me up and he said, I think I'm being canceled for being for putting out some conservative ideas, etc. And I said, you know what? I don't believe in anybody canceling anybody. It's a free country. We should be able to talk. So did an interview with him, and I want you to listen to that. But before we get started, I want to ask Howard, how are you doing this morning? Mr. Jack Van Bibbers, how are you guys doing this morning in the control room?
Good morning, Egberto. We had a little patriotic open this morning.
That was different. It felt good. I felt like it was back in 1975 when stations didn't necessarily run 24 hours. And just as they're about to start, they played the national anthem.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I
saluted my radio, man.
Man, I felt
so patriotic. I saluted my radio.
You saluted your radio, sir. That was great, and I actually like the what do you call it again? The version that you played. There's another words for version when you're talking about music. I can't remember what it is, but I like what you played.
That is from the U.S. Army Corps.
Oh,
I found that in my collection. I went, I got to play this in the morning for Egberto.
Did you? Well, thank you.
On his show.
Well, thank you, sir, because, we are all patriots here. Actually, Howard, we are the real patriots. Right, Jack?
Right.
I caught Jack off. I caught him off guard. Were you drinking coffee or were you eating a donut or something, Jack?
No, I just sat down from the mic and then you called me back. Yeah, I'm doing fine as frogs here, Egberto.
Well, mira, senor, we have to go get our breakfast, senor. I'll
talk to you after the show on that.
All right. Look, how do we go? It goes like pretty pronto, like very soon, pretty pronto. Andale, eso mi amigo. Anyway, folks, title of the show, most of SCOTUS supports business over workers. There was an 8-1 decision yesterday that surprised me. Sotomayor voted in favor. Kagan voted in favor. I am lost. Maybe we'll get to that, but even if we don't get to that, just remember that you can go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter to get the full story of whatever we don't get to cover here that was supposed to be covered today. Folks, remember that you can reach us at 90.1 FM Houston. Tune your radios to that channel. You can also download the TuneIn app at Android or Apple stores. Go to kpft.org to listen live. And you can say facebook.com/KPFT Houston, not to just listen to the program, but to also watch the program. That's facebook.com/KPFT Houston. Or you can watch it on YouTube by going to politicsdoneright.tv. politicsdoneright.tv. We have a great show in store for you. Let me go ahead and get that interview started, and then we'll come back. And when after that interview, I want to hear from you guys. 713-526-5738, extension numero dos. Extension numero dos. Here we go. And I said, here we go, a little prematurely. Here we go now. Welcome to another edition of Politics Done Right. Today, I'm honored once again to speak to Dr. Will Moravits. He's an adjunct professor of political science at Texas State University. For 3 years, he was a police officer for the city of San Marcos, Texas, having graduated top cadet from the Basic Training Academy of the University of Texas at Austin, my alma mater. He holds a Master of Arts in Political Science from Texas State University and a PhD in Public Policy and Administration from Walden University. He is a native of Uvalde, Texas. Senor Moravits, welcome to Politics Done Right once again. How are you doing today?
Very well, sir. Thank you for having me again.
Well, absolutely. I think the last time you were on, we were discussing, I don't remember if we were discussing gun controls or what, but you came from the conservative point of view. And of course, I come from a very progressive point of view. But one of the things that we always stressed and the mutual respect comes from that we believe everyone has a right to their opinion, have a right to their speech. And one should not be penalized on either side or on any side for what they believe in. You contacted me recently and said, guess what, Egberto? I think we have something to talk about. Cancel has hit me. Tell me your story.
Well, when we had our first conversation on your show, I was promoting my book that came out last February, The Blue Divide, Policing and Race in America. And we had a lot of discussions about that. And if you remember at the end of our conversation, I mentioned to you that oftentimes I show in my classes, when we talk about this issue, I show the old Chris Rock video, How Not to Get Ass Beat by Police, from the old Chris Rock show that he had. I don't know how many years ago it's been now. It's been a while. And I show that because for a couple reasons. He's funny, right? Laughter. I think people remember things better when they're laughing. And there's, even though it is funny, and at the end it gets a little bit comical, for those, that have seen it, I'm talking about where it starts talking about, a mad, angry woman, don't drive with a mad, angry woman because you never know what she'll say when you get pulled over. But leading up to that, there's some really good tips, be polite, respectful, hands on the wheel, don't, just different things. And I show it to him just in the sense for the classroom to kind of laugh, but also to kind of bring down the level of seriousness, kind of add some levity to the situation. But I do think it's a good video for them to kind of understand. And you wrote about that, I think, was it the Daily Kos?
Right.
And somebody in my former employer, St. Philip's College, some employee, I'm not sure if they were an administration or what, but an employee brought it to the attention of the college that I was showing this video, and also that I was calling myself professor with a little p, and that I don't have that rank. And I try to explain to them, I got called into a meeting with HR and one of the vice presidents about your article. And for about a week there, I wasn't sure if they were going to renew my contract because they have to let you know by the end of March. And this was middle of March when this happened last year. And they did. And basically what they told me is make sure you don't put yourself off as a professor. I'm an instructor. So even though I have a PhD, and I explained to them that Texas State, where I worked since 2018, everybody gets called professor in common language, right? You don't make that distinction. You do in rank. For those who aren't familiar with how the college system works, you have instructor, assistant professor, associate professor, and full professor, and that's just your rank. But everybody, the students, you just say, "Hey, professor," that kind of thing. But the main issue was that I was showing this video in class, and they kind of were saying, did you get permission to show it? Is this something appropriate? And I was like, and my response was, well, these are college students. Black Lives Matter, police brutality are in the curriculum that this college chose for my class, or approved, rather, I should say that the professors chose the curriculum, but it's approved by the college. And so yeah, I think it is appropriate and what have you. And so they basically left it as, just be careful what you teach. And then doing my rounds with the promotion of the book, I got to know the national spokeswoman for the National Police Association. And in August, they had a booth at CPAC in Dallas. CPAC, of course, is a conservative political action conference. And they had a booth there, and they invited me to sit with them at the booth and sell my book and just kind of help them promote the National Police Association, and which is, nonprofit, just kind of help out, police in various types of charitable ways and promoting good policing and things like that. And I jumped at the opportunity. I thought it'd be a great experience. I'd never been to CPAC, never thought I would go. I just, wanted to go and visit. And in the course of those 2 or 3 days that I was there, I took a couple of pictures of people. One that I was very proud of, I met Steve Williford, who those that follow mass shootings may remember. He was the Sutherland Springs man who stopped the shooting at the church in Sutherland Springs, where 26 people were murdered. And I put him up on my Facebook, right? And one of my colleagues is a friend of mine on Facebook, and she saw it. And when I went to work a few days later, another employee said, "Hey, be careful around this person, because this is what she texted me about you." And she showed it to me, and she was basically saying that I needed to be pushed out of the college because my views threaten democracy, that CPAC is a racist organization that promotes, racial purity and anti-democratic views. And the irony, of course, here, one of the things, the text message, and I was able to take pictures of these, mentioned that Viktor Orban spoke at CPAC, and he did. And the irony is, I didn't know who this person was. I mean, I know now he's the president or prime minister or something of Hungary, but I had no idea, or Turkey, Hungary, I had no idea who he was. But because I attended as a guest, I kind of got associated with him in that particular context. So I took those pictures and I kind of put them in my back pocket just in case something ever came up. And then a few months pass. I'm getting, during this time, I'm getting excellent evaluations of my teaching, all that kind of good stuff from my mentor and from my department chair. And then in February, I get called in for a meeting with HR and a vice president. And they tell me right away, there's been a complaint about you from a student. We don't know what the complaint is, but you're going to be put on paid administrative leave. And I was like, okay, well, can you tell me more? And it's like, no, the investigation should take about 2 weeks. You're going to get paid. You'll need to turn in your badge and your keys. And I was like, okay, when am I going to find out what the complaint is? They said probably by the end of the week or on Monday. And I said, okay. And I was told, I was like, okay, well, I need to go get some stuff from my office and I'll bring the badge down to you, because I didn't have my ID badge on me at the time. And they said, okay, well, I forget the sergeant's name, but the sergeant in the police department there for St. Philip's College escorted me. And we're walking out of the room, and I stop and I turn to him and I say, "Excuse me, sir, is this really necessary?" I said, I'm a former police officer. I'm not going to cause any problems. I'm just going to run up to my office, grab my bag and leave. And he said, "Well, I'll follow you at a distance." And I said, "Okay, that's cool with me." And so I go upstairs to my office and it's locked. And so I unlock it. I get in there and I'm gathering my things real quick. And then all of a sudden the door opens and it's the police officer who had unlocked with the master key to unlock my door. And I was kind of shocked because he said, he's going to follow at a distance. And then he follows me out very close by. And I kind of, under my breath was like, so much for following at a distance, because it was embarrassing, because everybody in my department's kind of looking around like, why are they escorting Moravits out, with the police officer? So I leave and I find out the complaint is from a student in one of my small classes. It was for political science majors. And she was claiming that I had made very discriminatory and disparaging marks against the LGBTQ community, particular transgender people. And then a subsequent conversation that I'd actually called or said that this is why we need police brutality. And if you remember from our conversation, the last thing I would go out and say is, yeah, we need more police brutality. Right. And so this was, again, the February 9th is when it started. So very early in February, March 27th, I still had been on paid leave. So the 2 weeks turned into over a month. I had not been questioned yet by investigators. And I was notified that my contract would not be renewed and that I would stay on paid leave through the rest of the semester. Now, mind you, I had an extra class that was going to start at the 8-week mark that I didn't get paid for because I didn't start it. So that was about $3,400 right off the bat that I was losing. I had 5 classes scheduled for the summer. That's another over $20,000. So right off the bat, I'm like, well, that's $24,000 I've lost just like that. And they finally did interview me. And I explained to them that none of this was true. I had simply given the alternative viewpoint to gender affirming care, right? Because like we mentioned, I may be conservative, but I don't want my students to only hear the conservative viewpoint. I want to hear both. And so we talked about in the context of how culture is changing with the transgender movement. Because you remember 10 years ago, nobody talked like this, with the pronouns and things. It was very new. It really started after Obergefell versus Hodges when the same-sex marriage case became nationalized, where all states had to recognize same-sex marriages, when it really kind of hit fast forward on the trans movement. And I was just saying that, there's people who question whether or not biological males who have transitioned should compete in sports against biological women. I was like, there are people who have gone through the surgery and have now regretted it. And I was just pointing those things out. And I even mentioned, I'm not making a moral judgment. I'm just saying, but it didn't matter. Since the non-renewal, I have discovered, I have 3 affidavits from students in the class, one a conservative, one a libertarian, black male, by the way. And that was, because of the whole police brutality accusation. And then one of them, a liberal student. And all 3 of them say that she's lying and that I was very respectful in class and just gave both sides of the issue. So I have that signed, notarized proof. One of these 3 individuals was interviewed by investigators at the college. So they knew back in February that the claims were false, but they still went ahead and got rid of me. I do have counsel. The Academic Freedom Alliance, an organization of professors and other individuals in higher ed from all different, political ideological backgrounds, are financing this lawyer. It's Michael Allen of the Allen Harris law firm in New England, and we've been trying to do mediation. That has not been very successful. So we are preparing a lawsuit for violation of protected speech and civil rights. Can't really speak much more on that because, legal, restrictions, but you'll actually, I think, get a kick out of this next part. So we had appealed the decision. And then once they were like, okay, they might be filing a lawsuit, their attorney said, okay, we're going to put the appeal on hold and we're going to try to settle this outside of court. And this was in late April, early May that we started to try to do this mediation. And they kind of jerked me around left and right. But one of the things they made very clear to my attorney was reinstatement was not going to be an option. So at that point, I decided, okay, well, if reinstatement's not an option, I might as well go clean out my office, And so a nice lady from HR down at the district office. Because for those of you not familiar with San Antonio, Alamo Colleges is 5 community colleges, and they're run by the same district office. And I was going to meet at my office in St. Philip's College at 11:30 on a Wednesday, 2 weeks ago yesterday. 2 weeks ago yesterday. And I was going to meet with the lady from HR, and I was going to pack up my things and go. On my way down there was a concern, some kind of miscommunication about the process. And she's saying, they're going to have to pack up your stuff and take it to the district office. And I said, I don't really want them to do that. I don't know who's going to be packing my things. It's my belongings. I'd like to do it myself. I don't give consent. I'm already on my way and what have you. I had business in the area beforehand. So I get down to the parking lot and I text the HR lady and I say, hey, I'm here. Is there any way I can get my stuff? I just want to move on with my life and get my things. And I live 30 miles from the college, so I didn't want to have to drive another 60 miles round trip when I'm already there. So she's like, well, let me get a hold of the VP and just hang tight. We'll try to get this situated. And so I'm sitting there talking to a friend of mine who's a faculty member. And then the HR lady calls me back and says, hey, I'm still trying to get a hold of the VP. Just hang tight. See if there's a police officer or somebody that might be able to let you in the room. And I was like, okay, well, look, I'll wait around for a few minutes and then I will, I'm thinking if I don't hear from you, I'll leave. So I go upstairs with my friend who's a faculty member, and there's 4 police officers waiting for me. And 3 of them surround me, one of them out in the hallway. And they're basically saying you have no right to be here. You need to leave campus. And I try to explain them again. One of them was a sergeant again. And I reminded him, I'm an ex-cop. This is during police week, Roberto. I'm actually wearing a police hat at the time. It's a 9/11 hat from NYPD for the 23 officers killed. And I tell them, I was like, look, you have no legal authority to remove me from a public space and a public building, especially when I'm here at the invitation of HR and a colleague, or now, a former colleague. And we kind of go back and forth, and they're saying, no, sir. And I was like, look, you have no right to my property. I'm here to get my stuff. I'm waiting on a call from HR. And it was just this back and forth. And eventually they one of the vice presidents did arrive and say, you're not getting your things and you're going to have to go down. So they forced me back off campus, and I had to go pick them up, down the road of miles and whatever. And they watched me the whole time. And just like I expected, they didn't pack up everything. So I had to get them to mail me some more stuff later and, whatever. It just seemed like overkill. And my lawyer actually commented, was like, well, at least now you know why some people think cops are dicks. And I was like, yeah, I get it. They're just doing their job, but it was kind of like,
wait a minute. I want to interject right there. As I'm listening to you, right? You're a former police officer. And by the way, actually, you know what? I want to wait to end this story before I go further. So finish telling me the conclusion. So let's go and then I'll ask.
Well, so I went and I met with the lady at HR down at very nice lady, and she was apologetic for all the confusion. I said, what was the reasoning for the police to show up like I'm some kind of, threat or something? And she's like, I don't know. It was miscommunication, whatever. And so she was very, very nice, very helpful, and got my stuff, and I left. And now we thought we had a mediation date that didn't work out. Some other things happened back and forth between the attorney and my attorney that I don't want to get into, but it got to the point now where we're kind of putting a hold on the mediation thing and probably going to be looking at filing an official complaint soon. But like I said, because of that, all the rules about legality, I can't really discuss more details about that just yet. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. I don't know, what's going to happen with my future, my career. I don't know if I have to, what my prospects would be if I'm going to have to uproot my entire family and move somewhere to find a new job. Because as you well know, there's not a lot. I mean, getting into higher ed is not the easiest thing in the world. There's just not a lot of jobs out there. And, Alamo Colleges makes up 5 of, I think, 17 colleges in driving distance from where I am. And then you look at a place like University of Texas, that's one of the top schools in the country. It's, very difficult to break in, especially for someone like me who I got into higher ed in my late 30s. So I didn't, I'm kind of behind the curve. I don't have like a long history at my age of articles I've written and things. This is my second career or third career, really, if you consider I taught at the high school level.
But you're also an author. You're also an author.
Yeah. The book that started all is your article that got
my article got you. I mean, my article got you a notoriety, brother. But
it got me infamous at college. So thank you.
Yeah. But let me just say, okay.
Okay. So that's basically the story.
Yeah, this is important. First of all, I want to ask you, and I'm going to be straight up with the answer. Is there some kind of a thing with regards to demeanor or whatever that I'm missing here, where you always come across to me very circumspect, nice, good attitude, etc.? Is there anything different how you came across in class when you were discussing transgender and all these issues, which we probably disagree on? Were you at least doing it from a respectful form? Or did you do it like some of the what I will call the wackos on the right? Because it is legitimate to say in the transgender issue, I just don't understand guys who become women and are going to play sports and then be educated about it. That is something that we can discuss, but we have to open the door to have discussion. Were you somehow?
Actually, the interesting thing is, there were two occasions where the student said I made disparaging remarks. Both occasions were me answering a student question, a different student. So the first question, had to deal with a student. We were talking about the different responses to COVID and how red states reacted differently than blue states about, reopening and going back to school and things like that, right? And I mentioned a study, and I can find it. I have to go find it again, but I've read it. It's a study that shows that there's a correlation between being conservative and being less risk averse. Mm-hmm. And so they're making the argument that when you look at jobs that have a high risk of injury or death, like loggers, oil workers, military, police, fire, or whatever, that there's a disproportionate number of conservative-minded or libertarian-minded people in those professions. And so I was just maybe there's something to be said that the red states being more conservative or more willing to risk the COVID protocols.
Right.
And one student said, yeah, liberals tend to be more shy. And I was like, no, not really. I was like, we talked about, how whether it be the civil rights movement, whether it be the gay pride movement, this is the day one of Gay Pride Month. I just kind of use that as an example that these people, I would not consider them shy. They're very open about who they are and what they do. And the student kind of brought up the LGBTQ movement, and I just was making the comment that they're very expressive about who they are. I said you can look at a gay pride parade and see that they are not ashamed of who not they are. And
absolutely, they shouldn't be. Yeah, exactly.
And that's kind of like where the conversation started. Another student said, well, it was a little bit older, and he made the comment, I don't understand all this language with the pronouns and stuff. Right? He was in his mid-20s, and I tried to explain to him kind of the progression and culture of how this has changed in the past 8 to 10 years. And when we got to talking about sports, I didn't even give my opinions. I was just telling people there's a swimmer named Riley Gaines who tied Leah Thomas, the Penn State swimmer who ended up becoming national champion. And Riley says that they took the trophy from her against Leah for the photo op, and then now she's going around fighting back and whatever. And I just mentioned some groups, and this particular student said, you are making a moral judgment. And I was like, no, this is my opinion. In fact, the irony of all this, Egberto, is that what I was telling the class were things that I had learned from a colleague of mine who is a member of the community and was letting me read books from the perspective of TERFs, right? Transgender radical feminists. It was like an eye-opening experience learning about I was told to go Google LGB, drop the T. right? And you've got on Twitter the Gays Against Groomers Twitter page, and you've got Fist and Wolf, which are lesbian feminist movements that are against the transgender kind of part of LGBT. And I was basically just trying to educate them that there are these other views out there. And they weren't even necessarily my views, right? I was just basically repeating things that I'd been reading with my colleague. So no, it definitely was not something that I was like, oh, LGBT bad or anything like that. I mean, I have two former students of mine from high school that I love dearly that are female to male transitioners, you know, and I never treated them any differently. And I have, like I said, I have 3 affidavits from students backing up what I just told you, that I was never demeaning to anybody and very respectful and all that.
I get that. And again, the thing about it is I don't want anybody who talks to me catering whatever they're saying because they know that I'm this progressive guy. I don't believe in cancel culture. I don't believe in any of that. I believe in I can stand up on, when I say I'm talking about, I think the liberal movement, the progressive movement can stand up on what they believe in. And you as a conservative have to stand up on what you believe in. And then we can sit down and talk and argue points, etc. The reason I really wanted you on as well is when you sent me that email and said you think you've been, you have been unjustly relieved for something that you didn't do. I think I am not in agreement with that. If you have a conservative idea that you put out to your students, as long as you're not judging your student and grading them based on the things that you're saying, there's absolutely no reason for them to get rid of you for your job. Just like there is no reason for, I'm gonna tease you here, your buddy DeSantis to do what he is doing in Florida as far as penalizing teachers as they are in Florida for teaching Black issues, gay issues, and all these other things. I believe in the free expression of ideas. And I hope that in this happening to you as well, you see the merit in all of us being able to be free to express these things.
Yeah, because I think especially at the collegiate level, you should be challenged when you go to college.
Yes.
And you should. I mean, I remember as a freshman sitting in class in 1996 and having my small little world that growing up in Uvalde and realizing that there's a whole bunch of different perspectives out there from what I experienced. And that's how you grow and how you get better. And I do try the best I can to present the progressive, the conservative, and the moderate in discussions. And one of the things I tell my students at the beginning of every class is I will argue against you, sometimes even if I agree with you, just to get you to think if other students are not jumping in, because I want the students to debate and I can facilitate. But sometimes, especially because most of the classes I teach are a lot of freshmen and they're big classes, like at Texas State. Sometimes kids, they're still a little nervous about speaking out in a group of 100 and something people and whatever. So sometimes I have to jump in. And I just tell them, I was like, look, most students your age lean left anyway. So I am going to just naturally probably argue the conservative side more often. But I have, one of my very conservative vocal students, one that actually gave the affidavit to me, I've spanked him down a couple times in class for arguments because I wanted him to think about from a different perspective. And that's why I read stuff by you and I read the Salon and Vox and different things, because I don't want to I want to be able to offer my students as much context and nuance as possible. That's why I disagree with some of my conservative friends that are like, CRT shouldn't be taught in college. It's and I was like, well, why not? It's a legitimate, critical theory is a legitimate thing. And if you're going to say, I don't want my kids learning about the 1619 Project or whatever, then how can you go around and, because that's indoctrination, then how can you say that, if I get up there and all I did was teach the conservative view, how is that not indoctrination?
Exactly.
Right? You've got to be able to give as much sides and things like that. And so I'm very much in agreement with you there.
Well, let me tell you this, and like I said, I want to before we close out. There's another thing that you said that really touched me, and that is how you felt when you were going to pick up your things, and how you're a cop. or you're a former cop, and how you felt with that guy behind you, how you felt with 4 cops surrounding you, how you felt with not looking through these other cops, not seeing through your eyes, these other cops not even giving you the time of day to express yourself. Do you see in a lot of ways how how those who are in the presence of cops, how they actually feel and why they act the way they do many times? And you're a white guy, and you have to admit that you're a white guy.
Yeah, and I interestingly enough, 3 of the 4 cops were minorities.
Well, maybe they were slapping. No, I'm kidding. Actually, let me just tell you something about the cops. Wait, hold on, Bill. I want to say something first. I want to say something first. In as much as these were minority cops, I don't distinguish white cops from black cops, because it's an institution that you've been there and you pretty much know that. Now, when it comes to if a cop makes a mistake, you know who's going to go down first. And if you look at the stats, you know who will go down first. But you felt that and I'm saying, think about those other people who lived that. And again, you were a cop. So,
well, because I was a cop, I was able to, I wasn't angry at them. I wasn't, I didn't lose my cool, because I knew how far I could probably push the issue before bad things happen.
Yes.
And again, I don't blame. Only 2 of the 4 actually spoke to me. The other 2 were kind of in the, just there, I guess. And my only problem is, I get they were just doing their job. The vice president was saying he's not to be here. But I could definitely see the wheels turning when I told the sergeant, show me the legal power you have to remove me. And HR invited me down here, because then he got on the phone and was like, okay, wait a minute. And that was good, because sometimes when you see these viral videos when they challenge police, sometimes the cops get all pissed off, and they didn't. They were very professional. But I kind of knew from my experience how far I could push the envelope. And I wasn't being disrespectful. I was being a little bit, firm, but I was being professional, because you'll see, I saw a video. Same guy did it in 2 different public buildings recently. He went in and was filming people in a government building, and the people were like, no, you can't film in here, whatever. And the cop showed up, and the first cop was like, give me that camera. You can't be in here, whatever. And he was saying, no, I can. He was signing the law. He did it in another building, and the cop knew the law and told the employee, sorry, it's a public place. I can't stop him from filming. He's not breaking the law. There's nothing I can do. And I think that's kind of a learning point that, for a lot of cops in that situation is, be sure that you have the authority to do what you're doing, and don't let your personal feelings of somebody, cloud your judgment. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely was aware of that. That's why I kind of felt like, hey, I've kind of been treating like a criminal when I wasn't doing anything wrong, yeah, for sure.
So, I mean, and I think that's and look, I hope, first of all, I'm glad there are others that are going to see this, quite a few that are going to see this video and listen to the podcast and listen to your experience. But I also hope that that particular part of this experience that you had, I hope you can write about it. I'm going to have this out there as well, because I think it's not only a learning experience for the people who the police are going to be trying to engage, but also for police officers coming from another police officer and how you felt when you were surrounded by them, But anyway, give me a closer, because we kind of went a little bit over, but I always like talking to you. So give me a quick closer.
Well, I just would say, for those of you listening out there, that if we want our education system to be a top-notch education system, if we want the country to be able to move forward and get along and actually have progress, we need to be able to sit down and have these discussions honestly and openly, and not silence views. I believe this country is a marketplace of ideas, and if you're not going to allow certain ideas into the marketplace, that's censorship. The way to defeat bad ideas is with better ideas, and I think that's what we should move forward to at all levels of education, but especially in higher ed.
Dr. Will Moravits, Thank you so kindly for spending some time here at Politics Done Right. And I wish you well. And like I said, I wish you well. They need to give you your job back.
Well, I appreciate you having me on to tell my story, Egberto. I really do.
Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. Okay, I see 2 calls on, but only one of them with a name on. So let's go ahead and take Kyle, line number 2. Come on in, Kyle. How are you doing?
I am
Kyle, you're on.
well. Thank you very much, Mr. Egberto.
They need to give me your job.
Should I be talking to President Kyle?
Yes, sir. This is him.
All right. How you doing, President Kyle? Is there one thing you want to tell me before we go to the next?
Well, yes, sir. I emailed you, and I would love to be more involved with the radio station and all I can do with the business.
Well, good. You know what? We always like to have people who are willing to engage. And let me tell you how you can start engaging with the station. I'm pretty sure that you have people that you know around the city of Houston and around the Houston metropolitan area. Please be one of our ambassadors and let people know that there is a program, there's a station out here that promotes everybody, treats everybody equally, and respects everybody, and they should be a part of the team. They should listen to us, they should call us, they should do all of that. Is that okay with you, Kyle?
I would do that, Mr. Egberto. I have been doing that, but I shall remain doing it.
I appreciate that, sir. And you keep on doing what you do. And I thank you so kindly for being a regular listener of our show. All right? Thank you so much, Kyle. All right. Anyhow, folks, I hope you enjoyed that interview that I did with Dr. William Moravits, because it is something that, like I said, first of all, I felt a little bit guilty at first, because when I wrote the article about when I interviewed him about his book, it got picked up, and I'm surprised that somebody at the university picked it up. And when they picked it up, they kind of didn't like some of the things that he said. I didn't think he said anything wrong. The guy is a conservative, etc. And, we are all entitled to our beliefs as long as we respect everybody else. And, everything that I know of him did just that. But anyhow, we continue here with the show. If you have any comments about the interview, please give us a call, 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Hit extension number 2 to get on air and talk with whatever you want to say. Let's go ahead and bring my good old brother and former engineer in the studio, the one and only Tori. How are you doing this morning, my brother? Tori, you're on.
Tori hung up on us here.
Oh, okay.
He's gonna have to call us back.
Okay, great. Well,
we're working on it right now.
We'll wait to hear from Tori a little bit in a little bit. But anyhow, so the guy that I just interviewed, I thought he was a good guy. Okay, come on in, Tori.
And Tori is back.
Hello.
Hello, Tori. Good morning, Tori.
Hey, let me take you off speakerphone here. So,
all right.
Finally got up early enough to listen to your show. Fantastic. I don't remember an old band from the 1980s from California, old punk rock band called the Dead Kennedy. But they had a song called California Overall. And one of the lyrics is, here comes the suede denim leather secret police. They've come for you and your uncool knee. And so it's all about PC culture, starting in California, mainly Northern California, centered in Berkeley, way back in the 80s. And I'm old enough to remember when Austin was not so PC. I mean, it was very civil libertarian. And
right.
It was like the civil libertarian center of Texas. You could go swimming naked in Lake Travis and, no problem.
Hippie Hollow. Remember Hippie Hollow?
Oh, yeah, I've been there 100 times. And so I remember when Hippie Hollow was on the other side of Lake Travis. And
yes.
There was no a gate. And, it's just, now it's called, used to be called Paleface Park. And I don't know, it might still be, but that was where Hippie Hollow originally was. But anyway, Austin has transformed in a lot of different ways. You know, we know about gentrification, but it's also become a lot more like Berkeley. You know, humorless PC prudes, and you know, people that have academic credentials. You know, in one thing, and they think that gives them license to make all these judgments in something else. You know, like one adjunct professor at a community college I was hanging out with once, I was noticing the African art on her wall, and I was like, wow, that's really beautiful stuff. And it was antique, you know, from the 50s or 60s. And she got so ashamed. Oh, I'm so sorry. My dad collected that, and you know, it's now it's cultural appropriation. And it's just like, I wanted to say, you freaking idiot. You know, no, it's not. It's African art, and it's probably made for the consumer, you know, tourist market or the local market, but it's made to sell. So if somebody bought it, they put it on a wall, and it's art. It's beautiful, and you don't need to be ashamed of that. It's, you know. And anyway, so people are making, you know, she wasn't an anthropologist. What does she know about cultural appropriation, right? And I mean, it's just like, that's Austin now. You know, I mean, not everywhere, but I mean, in certain circles, and there's a lot of academic circles in Austin. And, you know, it's just like part of the dialectic process, just like you're thinking about the debt ceiling this morning. You know, it goes back and forth. It's this way, then it's that way, then it's this way. And it's like, you know, it's a democratic process. And eventually we're going to get to something stable. But right now we're in this rapid evolutionary phase of this dialectic, you know, this national dialectic on the things that your professor was talking about. And, you know, cancel culture. And, you know, there's a lot of prudes out there, humorless PC prudes. And, you know, me, I'm a libertarian, socialist, you know, left-wing libertarian, civil libertarian, you know, NE, old school anarchist. And so, you know, I'm not conservative by any means, by any stretch. But, you know...
you want to entertain every point of view, Tori, and that is who we are. I mean, and that's what I try to promote, and that's why this professor felt comfortable to contact me and say, "Hey, I want to tell a story." And he didn't go to a conservative station to tell the story. He came to a very progressive dude, and that is, and again, all of that comes from a lot of what you talk about, not being a prude and being able to have a conversation, whether people agree with you or not.
Yeah, if they can cancel conservatives, they can cancel anybody. You know, first
exactly.
That. And the other side of it is that conservatives need to know that they are coalitioning with fascists when they go to CPAC. You know, just to give the devil's due here, again, the dialectic process, two sides. You know, CPAC, it's not all fascists, but there's fascists there. And conservatives need to know who they're working with. You know, the conservatives, you know, back in the day of Barry Goldwater in 1950s, post-World War II, you know, original conservative movement, you know, these were World War II veterans. A lot of them might have been, you know, conservative and reactionary to the point of being reactionary, and, you know, most likely were. But, you know, these are the guys that killed Hitler, you know, and so, you know, conservatives go up to a certain point, but they're not supposed to cross that line into working with Nazis and fascists, you know? I mean, they were the first ones that went over and killed fascists, you know?
Absolutely. Well, you know, again, I think it's important, the entire conversation, it's important for us to have that open conversation. Now, it is important also for us to call out. If you notice, our conversation with the former police officer and professor was pretty frank. I used what he said as sort of for him to entertain how, you know, something as simple as how folks who are in the presence of police officers feel threatened. He got to feel, after being a cop, he got to feel what it was like. And I brought that out because conservatives in general don't see that picture until it happens to them, right? And if you notice, he was very cognizant of the entire issue. He was ready to say, yep, I see it. Yep, I see it. So just like you talk about being able to realize that conservatives need to realize that right now they are in alliance with fascists, and they need to get over it if their conservatism is going to be taken seriously. But anyhow, Tori, anything else you want to add before I move on to the next subject?
You mentioned something about the dump truck drivers. No, not dump truck. It was concrete drivers.
Right.
The Supreme Court.
Right. That's what I'm about to talk about.
Stopping work is one thing, and it's workers' rights to withhold their labor. But I think the reason why they've got a huge majority on the Supreme Court in this decision, because that went from withholding labor to coercion, because it became a threat to destroy equipment and material.
You're talking about the concrete left in the trucks, right?
Yeah. I mean, they should have said they were going to walk out and not show up and not drive before they loaded those trucks. Because, at the very least, there's an environment of, you got how many trucks full of concrete, and they got to dump it somewhere. I mean, that's just an environmental hazard if you don't have a driveway to pull it.
But that wasn't the case, though. That wasn't, I mean, again, on the outside, well, I tell you what, stay on the line and let me read this for you, because, and that is where we have to prevent the danger of misinformation in what the new Supreme Court. It was an 8-1 decision, and Justice Jackson, she is the one who came out and said, no, this isn't how it should be done. Let me read it real quickly. The U.S. Supreme Court on Thursday ruled 8-1 in favor of concrete company against its striking workers in a decision progressive advocates called de facto union busting. The lone dissenting voice was liberal Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who argued that her colleagues overstepped their authority in siding with the company instead of deferring to the National Labor Relations Board. So I don't take any exception with what you're saying in that these guys decided to maybe, we don't know all the facts of the case, maybe destroy the property of the concrete company. What she is saying is, wait a minute, these disputes are normally, our precedent says these disputes are normally handled by the NLRB, not the Supreme Court. In other words, they're saying it's overstep its boundaries. The NLRB should decide the case, and then after that, you can come ahead and talk to the courts. In fact, if I recall correctly, the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court in, I think, Washington, actually came out to that same conclusion as well.
Well, I mean, I'm just speaking to the facts that, these trucks were loaded with concrete, ready to go. And then the driver said, no, we're not going to do it. And so, either the concrete company has to give in to their demands, or they have to dump the concrete and clean out the trucks, because, left in the trucks, it's going to ruin the trucks. And if they dump it, it's going to ruin the material.
And Tori, I want to disagree with you with something here, and then let's talk about it. And folks, I can still get one other call, 713-526-5738. Look, how comes when we are talking about issues that harm, the only harm that we generally have some sort of a sympathy for is on the corporate side? Aren't these companies harming the workers? Isn't that true? Well,
you left one off. One is harm to the environment.
I agree as well. I agree. But what I'm saying, I'm talking about the employee. Aren't the employee? In other words, we always give precedence. It seems to me that's my only concern. Look, for me, right here is not absolute right and absolute.
I was in the Wobblies, I'm believe in radical labor organizing, and I'm not against destroying equipment, for like forest companies, for instance, or pipeline companies. I think fine. Somebody wants to damage that stuff, that's fine. But this isn't that kind of action. This is a simple labor action, and there's rules of the game. There's no punching under the belt, and withholding labor is legitimate. 100% of the time. But, coercion, whether it's from labor or management or police or government, coercion is what is bad.
Okay, we're running out of time, Tori, but we're running out of time. But I want you to consider this and give me a call back when you wake up in the morning again to talk to me. All right, check this out. When you also agree that you can you can stop the pipeline and you can stop the trees, etc. That also is coercion. Sometimes coercion is what's used in activist movements to get things done, right? Because when you prevent somebody from cutting a tree and you put in spikes in a tree, that is in fact coercion as well. But brother, give me a closer because I need to close out the show.
Yeah. Good luck to the workers. They need to learn from this because you can't threaten. If you're employed at a job, you can't use a bargaining tool in your job, in your employment, if you're going to destroy the equipment. That's for an outside group. That doesn't want to, they don't want the driveways, and they can go to.
No, you entered a new part when you said that's for an outside group. But anyway, I got to go, Tori. Look, thank you so kindly for coming on this morning with me, my brother. You take care, okay?
Bye.
All right. Anyway, folks, I hope you enjoyed what we spoke about today. Having Dr. William Moravits on. Also, with regards to the Supreme Court, while we didn't get to the full story of the Supreme Court, you can finish taking a look at that story at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter, politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. I got to get off of air and go do my spinning so that we can get some exercise so I can come healthy with you in the mornings again. Folks, if you want to talk to me about any of these issues by email, you can contact me at kpft@politicsdoneright.com, kpft@politicsdoneright.com. I enjoyed listening to my callers. I enjoyed speaking to Dr. Moravits. Howard and Jack in the control room, thank you so kindly for the hard work that you do every morning to ensure that we can give our audience a program. Thank you. Howard? Okay. Anyhow, folks, we got to get out of here. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number 1, subscribe to our channel. And number 2, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.